Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 99. The importance of timing and quality.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
Now, I was originally planning to have an interview for this show. However, the person who I was interviewing has rescheduled the interview, and while it would be strictly possible for me to get the show out in time, I learned a few lessons from editing the last show with Paul Teague. The funny thing is that I should be a lot better at time management and organisation and everything like that, because when I was in the corporate world, I was very into things like Scrum and Kanban and lots of team management structures. Of course, it's one thing being able to manage other people in terms of teams, but it's very different to be able to manage yourself. The reason why I'm recording this episode is a little bit meta, in as much as I'm delaying the interview that I'm going to have with Ben Cameron, who's a book publicist, until episode 101, solely because I've learned enough over the years to know that if you rush things, then quality fails. There is something that I've always thought was called the quality triangle, but actually, according to Wikipedia, it's called the project management triangle. And I have mentioned this before in the very early episodes of this podcast. And this is the idea that you have a project and you can either spend a lot of money on it and get it done quickly and to a high quality level, or you can do something cheaply and quickly but to a low quality level, or the alternative is that you do it cheaply and to a high quality level but over a very long period of time. So you can see there's kind of a trade-off between them. Now, what I did with Paul Teague's show is I left it way too late, and I had real troubles with the transcription service that I use. And the trouble was that I kept being tempted to take shortcuts. And in fact, one of the things that I did wrong was I had a spelling mistake in some of the quote graphics that I put on the article, mainly because I did them after the fact. And while that's not the end of the world, and I'm sure that most people never look at the quote graphics on my blog posts, it was something that I had to go back and correct. And going back and correcting it actually takes longer than it would have done to have just done it properly in the first place. So I think there is a lesson to be learned in, while it's great to set yourself targets to things, they have to be realistic. To take a slight tangent, I think a lot of people talk about the Scrum methodology, and I've seen it creep into what you call the internet business space as well. But what I got out of what Scrum was very different from what you hear a lot of the times if you listen to lots of podcasts about time management. I think people are kind of missing the point about it. Well, at least a point about it. There are lots of other points as well. So for a totally new person to any of these time management techniques, the way that Scrum works is that you've got a team of people, and every so often you have what's called a sprint. So you basically get everybody together and you say, what are we going to do in this sprint? It might be 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever time period it is. And you basically break down the big tasks you've got into smaller tasks that you can hope to achieve within that 1 week period. Now, lots of people just leave it at that, but from the people who have taught me Scrum, and they were from a quite well-known training company, they made the point that the whole fact of the matter is not that you're breaking down tasks. That's kind of like, well, that's an obvious thing really, but I know a lot of us never get around to doing that. We just look at the big publish a book task at our wall and we never get around to breaking it down. So I suppose that is something. But the idea of Scrum and a lot of these other methodologies is that you're attempting to do as much work as you can within that period, but to a high quality standard. So you can put up on your board, publish a book, and you're going to set your Scrum sprint at 1 week, and you're going to say, well, I'm going to do all of these tasks within the next week. That's not really what the idea of the methodology is about. The idea of those kind of methodologies is that you basically get used to the amount of work you can do to a high quality standard where you're not taking shortcuts. You might start off with just like get in touch with a cover designer for the first week and editing a particular number of chapters. The whole point is you're supposed to be working out and getting procedures ready so that you don't have to keep going back to previous stuff you've done and fixing the mistakes you made. So for some people, just contacting the cover designer and letting them know to the right amount of detail might be all they should be doing in 1 week. It's very easy to try and cram in everything else. But if you actually get something done to a high quality standard that you don't have to keep going back to, it just makes a tremendous difference. So there is really a lot to be said for not biting off too much that you can chew. This idea of like shoving in loads of things that you're going to do by this day and this day and this day. So that's kind of why I'm doing this show rather than trying to rush the interview in 1 day and potentially making a load of mistakes again. I've got quite a long episode 100, which is a little bit of a different format show, but then it is episode 100. And I've got to do all the editing for that as well. And I think it's much better in terms of the show quality if I just take things easy occasionally. And I think you should do the same with whatever projects you're doing. In terms of book release dates, I would say you probably want to be doing it a couple of weeks or possibly a month after you think you should be able to do it, just to make sure you're doing it to the right level of quality. Because this is something that I've gone horribly wrong with in the last few years. I've basically committed to, at least in my head, to particular book dates that are just too close. And you just end up not arranging all of the promotions and things. You don't get the social media right. You're not properly getting the audience engaged that you want. And sometimes you just have to take longer to do things, but do them right so that you can avoid having to go back and constantly fix the errors that you made from the last time you rushed something to get it out. So that's my 2 pence worth today. Now, of course, the other part of this triangle is that you can spend money to get yourself out of these issues and keep the quality level up. And I wouldn't necessarily deter anybody from doing that, especially if you've got a large source of income coming in from somewhere else. It may make sense to just outsource as much as you can. So that's the other option. But I'd never ever suggest doing something on the cheap, quickly, to a very low quality level. It's just not really the way to go. So anyway, this is the end of my first 99 episodes of the show. From episode 100, I will be going to one show every 2 weeks to give me a bit of chance to do some work on other things. So if you haven't subscribed to the show, it might be a good idea to subscribe to the show now on iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever podcast tool you use, so that you don't miss out on the shows on the slightly less frequent basis. And I shall see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.